Hi, I'm Dr. Amanda Wilson, StraightSmile Solutions CEO and orthodontist. On this podcast today, you're going to learn a little bit more about launching orthodontics in a GP or primary care practice, or if you're an orthodontist, you're going to learn a little bit more about collaborating with your primary care dentist. Looking forward to talking with you.
OrthoMarketing.com, 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.
Well, hello everybody out there in podcast land. This is Dean Steinman from Ortho Marketing, and guess what? I am back with another podcast for you. So I am super stoked to be back here. It's been coming to the end of the year of 2024 now, and boy, it's been a crazy year. And if you're an orthodontic dental practice, it's been kind of a crazy year for everybody across the board. So we're obviously here to talk a little bit about how to make your practice more efficient, more effective, and help your bottom line. And I got with me a very special guest today that I'm super stoked to have aboard. I have Dr. Amanda Wilson, and we're going to talk today a little bit about why you need to incorporate orthodontics into your practice, and how you can take your practice to the next level. So, Amanda, thanks so much for joining. How are you today?
Sure. Aloha.
Aloha to you. Thanks so much for joining. Appreciate it. So before we jump into a little bit, why don't you give us a little bit of the background story? I always love to have doctors that come on that that kind of transitioned away from that and into being in the business world. So tell us a little about your story and how you ended up where you are now.
Sure, absolutely. And to be honest, if you had told me 20 years ago when I graduated, well, actually 23 years ago, when I graduated from dental school, that I would be doing consulting and product development and coaching as an orthodontist, I would say you were absolutely insane. But sometimes life has a way of guiding you in a direction that you weren't expecting. So I'll give you the quick 1 to 2 minute story.
Sure.
I went to UCSF for dental school, met my now husband of 21 years there. We both had last names of W, so we were anatomy lab partners and everything. And after my residency, he convinced me to move back to Hawaii, where he's from.
That must have been a tough sell, huh?
Yeah. But Hawaii has some weird licensure rules, especially if you graduate after before 2004. So we ended up working in San Francisco for about 10 years and then coming back again. So we went back and forth a few times. But ultimately, I wasn't able to practice here without having to go back and taking the licensure, the 8X exam with endo and perio and, crown and bridge. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm an orthodontist. I think this is just wrong. So it was a little crazy initially having a few kids and trying to balance our practices, with having little ones. If anyone has little ones, you realize how challenging it can be, because anytime one kid is sick, it's always, who's got the most production on the books today, who's going to take off. And it just wasn't working for our family. So he and I kind of strategized, and he said, you're really good at teaching people about ortho. Maybe you can teach. And there really wasn't anything out there for that was available for teaching remotely. So I said, okay, I'm going to start my own company, and I'm going to teach general and pediatric dentists how to do ortho, because there was a serious lack of coaching services out there that were independent and not directly affiliated with a certain brand. I just was like, I want to teach people an easy way to do orthodontics and have fun with it and not be stressed out and feel confident they can do this in their practice. Ultimately, my goal was to educate primary care dentists on what ortho was, how to do it. And even if they chose not to do it, they could always refer to a local orthodontist if it was too complex. But I know most dentists are not learning much about ortho in dental school. I mean, they learn maybe how to refer and maybe how to make a retainer, but that's really not useful ortho. So that's why I do what I do. And I've been doing it for 10 years and I absolutely love it.
That's great. Don't you love being in the smile business?
I
love
do. It's so
it.
satisfying. Yeah.
Isn't it great? So my job is to make my clients, dentists, orthodontists smile, and our job is to make other people smile. And
Yeah.
and it's incredible how seeing somebody walking down the street, and just when the confidence that they have just from smiling, it's when you walk by
Absolutely.
somebody, a busy street in New York City, wherever it is, and somebody walks down with a puss on their face, walk by, you're like, ew. But somebody just walks by smiling and happy, you could tell right away, how the life has changed, and It's great to be in this industry, because to be around people that
It is.
are changing people's lives, it's fabulous. Um,
It is.
so now let's talk a little bit more about the industry in general. And what is it? What's the main pain point that you see a lot of dentists having these days? And and how are you helping answer that problem that they have?
Sure. I mean, for the most part, I do work with general and pediatric dentists. I sometimes
Mhm.
work with new grad orthos as well, who maybe just didn't get their COVID trained and didn't get a lot of hands on, or maybe they just didn't have a lot of experience with growth modification or aligners. But for the most part, I'd say for aligners, it's predictability. I mean, I think people believe that if they just roll this case into the, you know, setup machine, whatever we're going to call it, they're going to get a great ClinCheck, and I'm calling this, a branded name, of course, but any aligner company, and they just wear the aligners and poof, everything works out. Well, that's not really how things work. So
Sure.
you really have to drive the bus on any aligner brand, and you have to know how you want to move the teeth. Let's say we have a crowding case, there's 5 main ways to treat crowding, right? How do you know which 5 to do? Are you going to do expansion, proclination? Are you going to do IPR? Are you going to take out some teeth? Are you going to do sequential distalization? How do you know what's right for that patient? There's so many things you have to take into account. And each patient, each case is a unique piece of art, basically. You have to take into account not only the airway, the soft tissue, the hard tissue. We got to make sure this puzzle piece is going to work together. So I help teach them how to easily solve the puzzle. That's really my goal.
Wow. And how hard is it to teach? Are you teaching an old dog new tricks, or are you teaching an old dog old
All of
tricks?
the above. So,
Okay.
new dogs, new tricks, new dogs, old tricks, old dogs, new tricks. So,
Okay.
it really comes down to, what their goals are, what their practice standards are, what state they're in, so many things, maybe who they have to refer to. Like I said, I know you have a lot of orthodontists who listen to your program, and I think that's awesome. And I also help orthodontists. But in addition, I'm sure all of you who are orthodontists that are out there have had these referrals where they either just waited way too long and you're like, oh my
Right.
goodness, now everything's already impacted and we got to pull out teeth. What a nightmare. They should have referred at age 7. I teach them, please refer if you don't know what you're doing. Please
Mhm.
refer early, 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 or, maybe you're just not getting enough referrals. And the more that this primary care dentist understands ortho, the more that they can explain and qualify that referral. Yes, they might take a few of the easy ones in-house, but they're going to refer you even more. And most of the doctors I work with send way more referrals than they ever did once they go through my program.
That's incredible to hear, because so many orthos are complaining about the competition, and people that were referrers are
Mm-hmm.
now competitors. And again, you have to see the forest through the trees, and the fact that you're help them understand that you can do a basic phase 1 or simple case, but a
Mm-hmm.
complex case, you know, refer it out, and you'll see it come back in spades over and over again. You've referred to an
Absolutely.
orthodontist at a complex case.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, they're going to open up their doors to you and say, come, here's somebody great to come to for the other side. So it's a
Yeah.
great, relationship there. But how do you help them understand the forest through the trees, that, wow, by referring it out, they're not going to get the billing for it and not make the money on it there, but it's not their expertise. So how do you help them understand that part there, and where that line is crossed?
It's a very fuzzy line, and I definitely have some doctors who are way more confident and they're like, I can do this, and some that are much more timid. Oh no, it might be a canine exposure. Yeah, you better refer that out.
Right.
So yeah, it's difficult. Definitely hold the hands, but also, a lot of your orthodontists out there, they can also provide coaching services. I mean, you do have to watch out with some of the terms of service and the liability. It's a very different type of insurance than what you have with your working with patients. This is B2B, not B2C.
Right.
But I think I know there's so much opportunity out there, and a lot of people would rather work with their local orthodontist on their cases, because that way, if you help them out a little bit, then they probably will start referring you more patients. So, it's a win-win for both of you.
Um, I know that there's always problems when it comes for billing and coding. And if you're not an orthodontist, and how does a dentist who is offering ortho code and bill if they're not an orthodontist? How does that work? Any
To be
insight into
honest, I refer them out for that. We
that?
even
Okay.
refer out for that. I have 2 consultants that help with that. It is
Okay.
a bit iffy. I
Isn't
mean,
it?
obviously they need to write the right summaries and stuff like that, and they have
Yeah.
to have the right diagnostics and the right records. That's the first
Mhm.
thing, right? I
Right.
can help them do that. But in terms of the billing, yeah, it can get a little clunky.
Right.
And they a lot of times they're used to working with one procedure type of things, right? They get their money
Mhm.
up front. This is a marathon, not a sprint. So it might comes in drips and drops. It might come in quarters, and if the insurance terms, then you're not going to get your money. And unless you have the right paperwork, you're not going to get your
Right.
money. So, yeah, I mean, don't rush into things. You can always get pre-auths. I mean, as much as we all know these things, and just take all the right records. That's the
Hmm.
main thing.
What's the number one question that or objection that a dentist has when talking to you as far as bringing on ortho to their practice?
Doing it in-house or bringing in a outside orthodontist, or both.
Let's do both. Let's talk about just doing it in-house and then bringing in a partner.
Uh-huh. I mean, bringing it in-house, I mean, ultimately it's how to organize it in the practice. I mean, you've got so many things going on. You've got hygiene going on, you've got a crown prep going on. So it's a matter of, I always strongly recommend that they do as much remotely and digitally upfront as possible. So if they're going to do braces, we got to do indirect bonding, digitally place the brackets, digitally approve the brackets, put your digital signature on it. And now good, you're confident the brackets will go on the right spot. That way it can be delivered maybe while you're doing something else, depending on the state you're in. Of course, same thing with aligners, taking a lot of time outside the practice to do it. And there's no reason now with virtual consults and everything like that, and scanners, that you have to give them a diagnosis right on the spot. I know us orthodontists are really good at doing that. I mean,
Right.
95% of the time, if a patient's in my chair, as long as I have the x-rays, I can pretty much, I mean, your brain works like a puzzle, right? You see it, you're like, I've done this. This was Jenny's case. This was so-and-so's case. You
Right.
know what to do, right? But occasionally we get a little stumped and we're like, hey, I'd like to take a little more time to study this. With primary care dentists, they all need to take more time to study it. They can't just guess and be like, yes, this is Invisalign, or yes, we can do this with braces. They have to take the time to go through the records and really work out the simulation and the puzzle to make sure it's going to work for that patient holistically. So I just tell them, nothing wrong with saying, hey, I like to take my time with making a treatment plan and a diagnosis. Thank you for your patience. Let's schedule a follow-up phone call or a Zoom with my treatment coordinator. What works for you? Let's schedule it next week. I'll have the answer by then. And that's great. Or if you use virtual consults, you can collect the rough data ahead of time. It's not great, but they can use chopsticks or spoons to retract. And I see a lot of orthodontists are doing that. If you haven't checked that out, just go to orthodontist near me, virtual consult. And I love to see what people are doing. Their synchronous and asynchronous virtual consults. It's a great marketing opportunity.
It really is. But, nobody even heard of virtual consults before COVID,
COVID, yeah.
And then there were some great partners out there that we worked with, that did virtual. And I have one practice that, while they were closed for COVID, did over $1 million in business.
I've heard
virtual.
so many of these webinars. Yeah. And I was like, right on, you guys are doing the right thing. Look, there was an entire direct to consumer industry that's kind of fallen apart in the last 10 years, but they were doing virtual consults and they sold how many millions of cases. So I'm not saying everything was good, but if they can do it, you can do it too, as long as your law is allowed.
Now let's talk about the, adapting and technology of virtual consults, because it's from my perspective, it's very hard to have somebody adapt and change into embrace, and then, quote unquote, embrace change. But you have to. So how would you give a little bit of advice to somebody that has to change the way they think when they're now looking at the whole picture versus just the whitening or the the bleaching or the cosmetic part, and you're adding aligning in now. So you have the ABCs, you have align, bleaching, and whitening, and then you have cosmetic. Align's a big part of it. You can't give somebody the perfect smile unless the teeth are straight. So you have to adapt. So how do you, and then when you have to embrace technologies and use automation and use, things like virtual consults. So what bit of advice would you give somebody who's just doesn't get or afraid to make a change? How would you help them?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. So the first time when you make changes, but I like to say, first of all, what do you like to do? What kind of dentistry do you like to do? And usually they say, I love to do implants. I love to do sleep. I love to place veneers. That's great. Ortho, treatment begets treatment. So the more ortho you do, the more everything else you're going to have. And everything else will work out better. If we upright those incisors, the veneers will stay on better because they have better clearance. If we, upright the adjacent teeth, the implants will drop better and they'll integrate better. So you'll just get better outcomes, have less complaints if you just finish the ortho first. Now, no one says you have to do it, but it is standard of care. And now even the ADA is making recommendations about bite, about occlusion, about airway. about making sure your patients are aware what their options are. So it really is important that you understand it. If you don't want to do it, I don't care. Refer it out then, but at least learn to screen them, and then send them the referral if they need it before they get the cosmetic work.
This podcast is sponsored by orthomarketing.com. Hey, you an orthodontist or dentist looking to give your practice the competitive edge it deserves? Well, look no further than Ortho Marketing. Ortho Marketing is the dentist orthodontist choice for digital marketing. At Ortho Marketing, we specialize in helping orthodontists and dentists just like you attract more new patients. Our team of experts knows the ins and outs of the dental and orthodontic industry, and we're here to help your practice shine. We're going to supercharge your online presence. We're going to optimize your website. We're going to harness the power of social media to connect you with the patients that you want. Say goodbye to empty chairs and say hello to a thriving practice. Choose Ortho Marketing today and watch your patient list grow. Visit orthomarketing.com and learn more and take the first steps towards your practice success. Ortho Marketing. It's not just our name, it's what we do. Does a practice need to now hire and bring in a TC, or something that I think a doctor could do himself? Because a lot of doctors are not salespeople, and this is almost like a sales position.
Correct.
You have to be able to communicate with the person the right way and listen and understand and help them, see the journey. So how do you help them on this, go through that part? Well, I can't afford to do this. I got to bring in a TC and I got to buy a scanner and blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about, the initial, part when you say you get somebody finds your website because they hired a great marketing company and now that they found you, to come in. But then what do you suggest would be the person who meets with them? Is a doctor have to do
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've trained ortho TCs that were, I'm sure we've all heard this before, but that were honestly car salesmen. I mean, they were Starbucks people. I mean, we hire people. My husband's really good about this. He carries his cards, and if he meets just an amazing person, service in the service industry, hey, are you interested in the job? I mean, as long as they're bright and they're good talkers and they're motivated, we can train someone in a matter of weeks. It's not that hard to train someone to do ortho if they're interested. So, but if you have the team members that are already interested, it can be tricky. I think one of the hardest things is convincing your team that we're going to add this new menu of services, something new. But usually most team members are thrilled about adding ortho because what's the benefit for them? Hopefully you're providing them care for them, maybe, and maybe eventually for their kids, maybe at lab fees or whatever. But, that helps their families as well. So usually people are very motivated and you don't get a lot of pushback. Of course, they're going to wonder what's in it for them. So maybe you have some incentives. That's really a whole nother thing. But I think it's definitely doable.
And when somebody does start in with the orthodontics and they're embracing it and bringing it to their practice, how do you help them come up with pricing? How do they price themselves in a market? Because you can't just throw something against the wall.
Secret shopping. It's all about secret shopping. So have your team do some secret shopping. I mean, usually you have a pretty good idea. If you're a primary care dentist, usually your patients that you've referred out are going to come back and say, I'm getting ortho with so-and-so. And you can just ask, hey, you mind telling me how much it costs? Or you can even ask to see the treatment plan. You get some idea of what they're charging around you. You need to be under what the orthodontists are charging for sure. Otherwise you're not going to get any business. I mean, I'm not saying it has to be, okay, let me tell you a story about this. So back in maybe 13, 14 years ago when I was practicing in the Bay Area in San Francisco, there was a guy down the street that put up a billboard right next to our office we were working that said Invisalign $29.99. Well, I was charging $7,000 or something like that. So I was like, oh my goodness, he's totally undercutting me. But, hopefully they're not going to charge that much less. But then this guy was also assessing ridiculous extra fees for retention and other stuff. And his goal, he even told me his goal was to do more implants. That's his only goal. He wasn't really interested in ortho. He was interested in doing more implants. So that's why he made his price so low.
Interesting. And now, when it comes to so many things have changed, there's so much competition, what do you suggest the practice does from an automation? That's kind of where we step in our job is to get people to show up, but you have to follow up with them constantly. People have so many different options, and the staff just doesn't get on board, and because they're busy. So, from a new business perspective, how do you help a practice, get the name out there more? And what would you suggest them to do besides hire a great marketing company like Ortho
I
Marketing?
mean, honestly, that's not me. So I do the clinical stuff. So I mean,
Right.
I recommend companies like yours, which is great now
Right.
that we're partnering together.
Right.
But I mean, like I said, you've got your own patients. Just start with, it's really easy. I'm sure you've heard of wellness scans. So if you have a scanner, I mean, of course, my preference, and I have no affiliation with Align Technology at all, but the iTero is amazing for
Right.
wellness
Right.
scans. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just so visual and so pretty. And if you take a wellness scan at every other recall appointment, once a year and just kind of show them, hey, look, looks like you have some crowding, this many millimeters, looks like you have some attrition, some abfractions. Okay, definitely ortho would benefit your bite. We want your teeth to last for a lifetime. Let me just show you the plan just so you have an idea of what it would look like, especially if you can get it in the in-face and see it with their smile. Don't be salesy. Don't be salesy. Just explain the health benefits of this and why you think it would help their mouth and their bite. Then, move on and say, if you're interested, let me know. We do offer these services, or we can refer you out to an orthodontist. And then just circle back 1 year from then.
Right.
Obviously, if they're interested, then you can follow up. But you'd be surprised just from doing that wellness scan, you're going to get so many starts. It may not be that moment, but it might be a few months later or a year later, because people don't want their teeth to, implants are getting new implants is a lot more expensive, or perio
Yeah.
treatment than just doing the ortho now. And what if they have coverage? They might even have insurance coverage. It's insane if you don't want to do treatment.
Um, if somebody's thinking of doing this, what kind of commitment time wise are they looking at? Because they're, both, dentists are busy people. So if
Mhm.
they now want to like learn about your services and then incorporate it, what kind of investment time wise do they have to look
From
at?
0 to 50, 0 to 100. So we have a ton of free resources. One of the fun things that I do is I make YouTube videos explaining basic ortho concepts. I also take requests. So a lot of times I get, hey, can you make a video about this? Can you explain this? Um, so it's almost like a wiki ortho page. If you go to StraightSmile Solutions YouTube channel, 2,300 videos to date.
Wow.
And they're kind of organized into buckets. So we have like a whole braces one, we have a whole Invisalign one, we have a whole non-Invisalign, we have a phase one and airway one.
Wow.
So you can just go in and see what you're interested in, just watch those videos. It's a lot. So, just click around and see what's interested, or you can search by keyword, like RPE, and then you can watch all the videos on RPE. But that's a great way to get started, and it's free. It doesn't cost you anything.
Wow.
We also have courses that are digital courses. Sometimes we have live courses. I post them on my website if I have them. And then from there, if you want to move on to coaching, we have coaching help with one case, one-on-one, or all your cases for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever you want. It's really, there's no real commitment. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. So, but if you just want to dip your toe in and try it, even if it's a case that you're stuck on, it doesn't have to be a new case. It could be some case that's like not finishing, maybe you keep having refinement after a refinement and you're like, what is wrong? And the patient's getting frustrated. Let me help you with that case. Well, you're going to learn so much. And somehow you pick a case and we're looking at it. Let's say it's a new case and we're like, this is not appropriate. I think you should refer this out. We will give you a credit for another case. So you really have nothing to lose.
Wow. So I got two more questions for you.
Sure.
First one is you're back in your ortho days and
Mm-hmm.
a patient comes in and sits in the chair.
Mm-hmm.
You have the ability to choose one person in the history of the world to come in and sit in your chair and be able to look at them. Who are you choosing?
Wait, one person to look like phone a friend for my ortho case?
Just,
Is that what you're saying?
as a patient to sit in your chair and to have X many minutes with that person. Forget about what the teeth look like, but
Oh,
just
this is going to be my patient. I'm
exactly.
picking any
Correct.
patient,
Yep.
not an
You're
assistant.
picking
Okay.
anybody in the history of the world that you would like to have sit in your chair, that you could talk to.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you didn't warn me about this question.
You got to keep things in the pocket.
Oh no. Anyone that I want to talk to. Okay, I'm just gonna pick something random just because I admire him, and this is kind of a Hawaiian thing. But Duke Kahanamoku,
Okay.
he is the godfather of all things water, aquatics. My kids are swimmers, surfing in Hawaii. He was such a good person, such a likable person in the community, and I really admire him. So I would love to meet him. And he had great teeth.
Oh, awesome. Good. All right. And then I've got one more important question that I don't know if you saw, but I just came across my text that a asteroid is hitting Hawaii tonight. So you have the ability to, you have one last meal that you're
Okay,
going
I
to
think
eat.
you're kidding, right? Because we've had this missile warning. Okay, thank you. Don't
So,
look around.
so now you're about to eat your last meal.
Okay.
What
Well,
is
we've
it?
actually had that happen to us before. If you go back to, I don't know what year this was, 2020, 2019, we had the missile crisis where everyone in Hawaii got a text saying that we were going to die and the missile was coming to bomb us. So
Wow.
yeah, you should check that out. So I mean,
Okay.
this is something we actually take seriously. But and it ended up being oops, someone pushed the wrong button. But what is my last meal? I guess in Hawaii we do good with luau's, and we do emus, which is where you build like a giant pit in the ground and you roast a pig. I know it sounds really mean, but they're usually fresh and they're so tasty. It's really moist and yummy and it smells so good. So I would love to have a luau.
There you go. Okay, cool. Good. All right. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Now, if somebody wants to get more information, learn about you, and talk to you about potentially helping them out, what's the best way for them to do so?
Sure. And actually, just an added plug to any of your listeners, I'm going to give any of your listeners 2 free things. They do have to mention your podcast, though, in order to get these for free. So number 1, you can go to my website, StraightSmile Solutions. That's plural, StraightSmile Solutions. And if you go to the contact page, there's a button to schedule a free call. I would like to definitely give any of your listeners that free call. And answer any of their ortho questions. We won't be going over a case per se, but definitely get any of those ortho questions out there and concerns. So, and in addition, I also have a document store on my website. You can find it under store, I believe. And I would like to offer any of your listeners a free document from my document store, or you can go to my YouTube channel and see some of the documents that are referenced. And usually those fees are $20 each, but it's a gift for any of your listeners who mention your podcast. And yeah, I would love to talk to anyone. You can shoot me an email at info@straightsmilesolutions.com, or just find me on any of my socials and message me, and we'll hook up.
Awesome. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for joining everybody out there. She's great. If you're thinking of taking your practice to the next level, have questions about implementing orthodontics learning a little bit more and figuring out what's the best way to also build up your referral base. This is real important, guys. You're in the smile business and you have to work together with everybody. You're not competing now, but if you work smart, you can come back and tenfold. So, reach out, learn a little bit more and see how you can take your practice to the next level. So, Amanda, thanks so much for joining. Appreciate it. Everybody out in podcast land, thank you so much for listening. As always, really appreciate all of your loyalty, your messages, everybody following us, and once again, a little shameless plug here. If you are looking to take your practice at the next level and you need more patients, if you need ortho marketing, who do you think you're going to call? Ortho Marketing. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Everybody be safe and smile, smile, smile.
orthomarketing.com. 360-degree digital marketing solutions for your practice.